I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, another Temple Mount terror attack is narrowly averted. The Green Prince takes the United Nations Human Rights Council by storm, and we'll reveal the top 5 free activities that you can take part in the Jewish state. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Israeli security officials have today announced that 3 Israeli Arabs from the northern city of al-Fahim have been charged with planning to commit a shooting attack at Jerusalem's Holy Temple Mount compound. The 3 have been identified as Saeed Gassoub Mahmoud Jabarin, Farez Salah Mahmoud, and a 16-year-old whose name has not been cleared for publication. Shin Bet officials say the 3 began visiting websites and media pages linked to ISIS and hope to join Islamic State fighters in Syria. The news comes after 3 terrorists, also from the city of al-Fahim, shot and killed 2 Israeli policemen near the Lions Gate in Jerusalem's Old City in July. The terrorist attack sparked massive clashes between Arab worshippers and Israeli security personnel when Israel announced they would be putting up metal detectors at the entrance of the Temple Mount compound. The 2-week protest led to serious tensions between Israel and the Palestinians, but was eventually resolved when Israel decided to remove security barriers, including the controversial metal detectors. Shin Bet officials say the 3 suspects began planning for the terrorist attack shortly after the July shooting and were already in possession of the weapons needed for the attack. Since the rise of ISIS, Israel estimates that dozens of Israeli Arabs have joined the Islamic State. Several of Israel's top political leaders gathered in the Gush Etzion bloc yesterday to celebrate 50 years since Israel began constructing settlements. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was joined by ministers from his cabinet and Israel's Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein. Neither leaders of Israel's opposition parties nor a member from the Israeli High Court, however, were in attendance. Prime Minister Netanyahu declared that settlements will not be uprooted.
ההתיישבות חשובה לכם, חבריי, ובאותה מידה היא חשובה לי. ולכן אני אומר, לפני הכל, ובאופן ברור, לא תהיה יותר עקירה של יישובים בארץ ישראל.
Netanyahu went on to say that one of the main reasons why Israel will not evacuate settlements in the West Bank is because Israel fears the West Bank will become like Gaza, saying, quote, "We did not get peace when we uprooted settlements, we got terror and missiles, and we will not do that again," end quote. Meanwhile, a senior Trump official has reportedly told Prime Minister Netanyahu that although the United States does support Israel building settlements, they don't want Israel to build excessively. They said, quote, "You can be a pig, but don't be a chazer," meaning gluttonous. Reports suggest that Netanyahu relayed the message to settlement leaders, who in return explained to Netanyahu that they would like settlement building to increase and are waiting on approval for 10,000 new housing units. Moving on to a holier subject, tomorrow the Jewish Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, begins. And joining us in the studio to help explain the significance of tomorrow's holiday is former member of the Knesset, Rabbi Dov Lipman. Rabbi, thank you very much for joining us again.
Great to be here.
All right, now my first question is, why do we fast during this holiday?
It's a great question, and so much focus is placed on the fast, so it's important for people to understand why. The Torah itself, the Bible itself, says that this is a day where people are supposed to be afflicting themselves. What does that exactly mean? So the Talmud elaborates in the oral Torah, and it's amazing that all across the board in Jewish communities, wherever you'll find Jews, it's understood to mean fasting. And the idea behind it is not to hurt yourself. The idea is to sort of elevate yourself from the physical world for one day. This is a day of spirituality. It's a day of introspection. It's a day we want to get in touch with our true selves, which is our inner selves, and therefore we remove ourselves from anything physical, including the food. And I have to tell you, as difficult as it is to fast, and you do get hungry, there is something to that where you just sort of feel, I'm a little bit above my regular physical self.
Yeah, who needs food? No. I mean, just to stay on that point for just a second longer, the Torah or the Talmud would never advocate, self-flagellation, or I don't know, or any sort of infliction of pain upon oneself. Would it ever do that?
No, correct. We don't have that concept. And the truth is, the day before Yom Kippur is actually, there's a mitzvah, there's a commandment to eat. And people even talk about, people that are great, righteous people who walk around with food in their mouths all day, to have mitzvah all day. The idea is prepare yourself for the fast properly, drink, there's a big meal before the fast. Any person who's in a relatively healthy state can make it through the 25 hours without the eating. But no, we don't want anybody to be hurt. And by the way, if somebody's in a situation of life or death, obviously they're supposed to eat and break the fast. And of course, that's the priority, a person's health. But again, the idea of prepare yourself, eat the day before, and then take one day and not be thinking about the meal and not be weighed down, so to speak, by the food that helps a person elevate spiritually.
Okay, now people say that Yom Kippur is a somber day. Would you agree with that statement?
I think it has two faces to it. There is, listen, we talk about who's going to live, who's going to die. We talk about a day of judgment. We are confessing our sins before God. So there is a somber nature to it. But I think it's important to view it also as a celebration of the opportunity that we're given. We all have our failings. We have a year where we're sort of disconnected. And it's amazing how people, like I said before, from the most religious who are in synagogue every single day to people who are never in synagogue, this is the one day where they all come together. It's a day of celebration that we can reconnect to God and give ourselves a fresh start and a clean slate and begin the new year with that purity.
So I think to do that sort of thing takes a lot of self-introspection and kind of questioning. So what kind of questions should people be asking themselves when they attend synagogue or even if they don't attend tomorrow?
So first of all, it's very personal, so far be it from me to feel that I can tell people what questions to ask themselves. But if you look at the prayers and if you look at some of the confessions as well, there's two elements to it. One is between man and fellow man. And I think that everybody can ask themselves, what can I do better to repair my relationship with my fellow man? And the truth is, I've been lecturing about this in Israel, where I've been saying we have political disagreements, ideological, theological, and that's fine. People will have different opinions. Don't let that become personal. Don't let the rhetoric reach a point where we can't sit together and discuss things. And I'll tell you, in the Knesset, I actually learned, people don't believe this usually because they see all the yelling and the screaming.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous amount of camaraderie behind the scenes, and people don't really let it become personal. Some of the best friends cross the most extremes of party lines.
Really?
And that's an important message for people to ask themselves. Disagree, that's fine. But let's not, we have just ourselves, we have our family, and let's make sure that we repair those relationships. And then each person between man and God, but again, this is a very personal thing, what can they do better this coming year to try to repair that relationship and try to bring more godliness into the world?
All right, so now maybe you can help me point this out. What are some of the differences between the observance of this holiday and maybe even other holidays here in Israel versus in the diaspora?
The biggest difference, and I think that people who live in the diaspora can't even imagine this until you come to Israel, is the way the country shuts down. It really is a day of atonement for all of Israel. It's just incredible. I remember going to synagogue in America, and it's a regular day, and there might be regular ball games going on, regular this, that, people going to work. And here, from religious to secular, it shuts down. I was reading an article in one of the Hebrew newspapers of all these Israeli superstars describing their Yom Kippur in synagogue, which prayers they love the best, what they connect to, which moments. And I think it's an incredible thing to see the Jewish people coming together like that. We have this religious secular divide in Israel, and this is a day where I think we remind ourselves we all come together. And I'll tell you, that's where Israel is really different, where you really see a Jewish state acting as a Jewish state, each person in their own way. I see they're showing films of people in the streets as well, no one driving their cars, and children even who are secular know they can go out with their bikes onto the highways, no driving the cars, public transportation, malls, movies, sports, all culture shuts down, and people can connect spiritually as they choose. And I think that makes Israel a completely different experience than diaspora.
So I think the last thing is, there's a special kind of greeting that people have on Yom Kippur. What is it, and what is the significance of that?
So people talk about chatima tova, about having a signed, sealed, delivered judgment for the good, because this is sort of the end of the process of the judgment of the high holidays. We have this incredible climax of Yom Kippur, where it's just called Ne'ilah, an extra prayer, which we don't say during the rest of the year, where the gates are, so to speak, closing, the opportunity to repent, the opportunity for atonement. So we all wish each other a chatima tova, that you should be signed for the good, and you'll see that all over Israel. You'll see it on the buses as well. There's an incredible thing in the very beginning of Yom Kippur where we actually get together and we say, we sanction the prayer with the sinners. We welcome the sinners. Now, who are the sinners? So it's everybody, because all of us view each other, right? The religious view the secular view the religious, the Sephardic view the Ashkenazic, Ashkenazic, Orthodox to Reform, Reformed. It's a moment where we put aside all those labels and we come together and we say, Chatima Tova. We hope that everybody is blessed with a good year, with a healthy year, with a prosperous year, and that we as a nation, the prayers are very collective in nature, that we as a nation, with all of our divisions, should be able to come together, be secure, be safe, and also succeed as a people. And I think that really brings the whole nation together on this very special day.
All right, well, Rabbi Dov Lippin, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, and Chatima Tova to all the viewers. It should be a wonderful year for everyone. We should take advantage of the day. It should be spiritual in nature, and everyone connected in their own way. And let's come together as a nation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now back to the news. Sparks were flying at this week's United Nations Human Rights Council as accusations and threats against Israel flew unashamedly across the plenum floor, defended against only by Mossab Hassan Youssef, the so-called son of Hamas. First, United Nations Human Rights Commissioner Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein sent warning letters to 150 different companies, threatening that they would be added to an international blacklist database for doing business in the settlements of Judea and Samaria. In the letter, which was addressed not only to companies from Israel but to organizations from all over the world, recipients were asked to disclose the exact nature of their business in the occupied Palestinian territories. The list has not yet been published under threat from the United States and Israel, but Palestinian and pro-Palestinian officials have been urging for the publication of the list since it was started. As for the Green Prince, Mossab Hassan Youssef, he was invited as a surprise speaker by the UN Watch organization to defend against the slew of attacks against Israel levied by dozens of UNHRC member states. In his short but passionate speech, which visibly angered and shocked Palestinian officials, Youssef called the PA the greatest enemy of the Palestinian people and concluded that if Israel didn't exist, they'd have no one to blame.
Shukran, Sayyid Rais. I take the floor on behalf of the UN Watch. My name is Mossab Hassan Youssef. I grew up in Ramallah as a member of Hamas. I address the words to the Palestinian Authority, which claims to be the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. I ask, where does your legitimacy come from? The Palestinian people did not elect you, and they did not appoint you to represent them. You are self-appointed. Your accountability is not to your own people. This is evidenced by your own total violation for their human rights. In fact, the Palestinian individual and their human development is the least of your concerns. You kidnap Palestinian students from campus and torture them in your jails. You torture your political rivals. The suffering of the Palestinian people is the outcome of your selfish political interest. You are the greatest enemy of the Palestinian people. If Israel did not exist, you would have no one to blame. Take responsibility for the outcome of your own actions. You fan the flames of conflict to maintain your abusive power. Finally, you use this platform to mislead the international community, to mislead the Palestinian society to believe that Israel is responsible for the problems you create. Thank you.
So it's been one day since the Palestinians were historically accepted into Interpol, and Israeli politicians are publicly upset while Palestinian officials are ecstatic. Netanyahu ally and Likud minister Zev Elkin explained that Israel must respond to the Palestinians' entry, saying, quote, Israel cannot stand idle in the face of the Palestinians' diplomatic warfare. We must convene the cabinet and stop all of our goodwill gestures towards the Palestinian Authority, end quote. Former Israel Prime Minister Ehud Barak decided to take a different approach and didn't mention the Palestinians, but clearly took a shot at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for not blocking the Palestinian entry, tweeting, quote, another one of Netanyahu's failures. The gap between reality and impressive but empty speeches is growing. Leadership built only of talking big is endangering Israel, end quote. One of the only Israeli politicians to welcome the Palestinians to Interpol was Israeli Arab Knesset member Ahmad Tibi. As expected, Palestinian officials declared the entry to Interpol as historic and just the beginning of Palestinians joining other international organizations.
هذا انتصار ساحق للدبلوماسية الفلسطينية، وهذا تأكيد أن القيادة الوطنية الفلسطينية والقيادة السياسية الفلسطينية تعمل من أجل وضع فلسطين على المنبر الدولي ووجودها في المنظمات الدولية.
As a reminder, Israeli officials were worried that Hamas and other terrorist organizations would have access to sensitive security information if the Palestinians were to join Interpol. After yesterday's terrorist attack, Israel's fears seem justified. So it turns out that Israel has been playing a special role in protecting the Pope. That's right, Pope Francis's security detail actually uses an Israeli-made surveillance balloon to watch over him during his trip to Colombia. The highly sophisticated balloon has advanced day and night cameras and can automatically detect suspicious targets and zoom in on them from above. All that while simultaneously maintaining an overview of the entire area. The balloon is developed by the Israeli company RT Aerostats Systems, and it's regularly used by the Israeli military and police. The balloon has even secured the Pope's past trips to Africa and Israel, and in the past, the Pope's security detail used unmanned drones, but the Israeli balloon is apparently more sophisticated and a lot cheaper. Now, the world's most popular sport is becoming more acceptable for women in the West Bank. Surprisingly, especially in conservative villages like Deir Jarar. Deir Jarar, a village located on the outskirts of Ramallah, has not always been open to women playing football, but things appear to be changing. 40 girls who are between the ages of 10 and 14 are now playing soccer in a small pitch. Some of the girls were worried that the town would not be accepting of them playing soccer, but so far there have been no objections. Soccer has always been popular in Palestinian culture, as it is in most of the rest of the world, but it's only seen young women take a serious interest in the mid-2000s. In 2005, the Palestinian national women's team was formed, and soon after, many local leagues followed. There are now 18 adult teams playing in indoor and outdoor leagues throughout the West Bank. Big news in the world of medicine. Israeli researchers have just revealed some surprising information that could profoundly change how cancer is treated in the future. According to a team from the Weizmann Institute in Rehovot, bacteria that is hidden inside cancer cells may be hindering the effectiveness of chemotherapy. Molecular cell biologist David Straussman says his team has discovered that bacteria contained in the gene CDD could actually inactivate a chemotherapy drug called gemcitabine. After examining more than 100 human pancreatic tumors, the Israeli researchers realized the long form of the gene is technically responsible for causing the problem. Now here's the good news. The CDD bacteria can be knocked out with antibiotics, and the chemo will then continue to work afterwards. In other words, chemotherapy treatment combined with antibiotics may be much better for patients than chemotherapy on its own. Now, we all know there are many cool apps across every subject out there, but if you're thinking about retirement, we promise you that Robin is a must download. Here to tell us more about the life-changing app is Yossi Yarkoni, founder and CEO of Robin. Thank you so much for coming in, Yossi.
Hi.
All right, so first off, tell us more about the app. What is it and how does it work?
First of all, the main thing that we are looking for is to make all the information much more accessible to the public. People try to avoid dealing with their retirement because it's too complicated issue, and I think none of us is really interested in wasting time in something he does not understand about. So we are trying to make everything much more simple, more accessible, and actually we offer for our customer to do everything for them. So they can be in control of what we are doing and know exactly how much they have, how they can improve their returns. And maybe later I will describe also about some other things that we are doing for our customer.
So is this meant to be used by people like me who really need to start on planning retirement as early as possible, or is this for people who are already getting ready to retire?
No, absolutely. For people like you, we are targeting millennials, especially in the US, which is a very big group of people. And we not just looking to help with the retirement. Actually, we are looking to help with all the asset management and liability. And we know that many millennials are suffering for their student debt, the loans that they took many years ago, and they still have to pay. And so we want to build kind of financial nest for millennials, where all the main stones, the major issues, will be dealt in one place in our mobile app. So people can refinance their student debt. We will help them to manage their 401k or IRA account, and at the same time we will offer also life insurance at a very cheap price, at a reduced price, as kind of a group life insurance for millennials. We've built algorithms that take into account not just the return and the risk, but we are taking 89 different parameters to be analyzed in our system. And the result which we are presenting for our customer, that we are making much better returns for our customer, and we are willing to commit. So you're not paying your management fee unless we perform in a certain level, which at the moment it's 6.5%. So we are willing to commit for 6.5% annual return on the investment.
That's amazing. So okay, so we unfortunately have very little time left, but you know, where is this available? Is this working worldwide or just in Israel or in the States?
Yeah.
And you know, when will it be available if it isn't already?
So at the moment it's working already in Israel. We have more than 20,000 users, and it's supposed to start to be available on the US store on beginning of next year. We already had the relocation ourselves to the US in order to be close to the market. US is our biggest market, of course, so we see Israel as a kind of a beta site. And after a very successful period, we just yesterday learned that we are ranked #1 in Israel on the financial app on the App Store, which is great news. You know, we are just a small startup and we are competing against all the giants, but I think the public demonstrate his satisfaction from what we are doing. So we are very happy, and hopefully it's going to happen the same in the US.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm going to go home and download this. And thank you so much for coming in, Yossi, from Robin App. I wish you the best, and I'm sure you'll get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we have ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh to tell us all about the top 5 best activities to do at no cost at all.
Yes, well, there are an endless amount of adventures to go on in the Holy Land, but I'm here to give you guys the top 5 free activities to do in Tel Aviv. At number 1, the markets in Tel Aviv are the heartbeats of the city. Shopping isn't a must, I mean for some of us it is, but more importantly, come prepared to experience all the colorful stalls, the insane smells, and to hear lots of people shouting. The vendors can be found selling all different types of spices, dried fruit, fresh produce, fish, and of course tons of gummies. Get ready to eat and take pictures. Now on to entertainment. Park Hayalkon is home to hundreds of live concerts and events throughout the years. From people like Britney Spears and Justin Bieber to Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith. It's been one rock and roll ride with these international performers, but that's not all the park has to offer. There's the botanical gardens, sport facilities, and even 2 mini zoos. Definitely worth a walk in the park. Okay, this one may seem obvious, but the beach. No matter how many times people say it, it won't be the same until you come and experience it for yourself. Each beach has its own vibe, personality, and culture. You got your Banana Beach, which is more family style. Frishman Beach, you got a lot of internationals. And Gordon is where the true Israelis lie. Visit all of them if you have time. No visit to Tel Aviv is complete without a trip to one of the world's oldest cities, Yafo. Old Yafo isn't only known for its historic atmosphere, but also top designers and artists come to open shop in this trendy new neighborhood. Oh, and remember those fabulous markets I mentioned before? Yup, there's one there too. Last but not least, we have the Tel Aviv Port, filled with tons of culture, entertainment, and activities for the whole family. The 14,000 square meters of wooden deck acts as a huge promenade with lots of great food, bars, and clubs for a great daytime activity, as well as a little taste of the crazy nightlife. Stay tuned for our next top 5. Back to you.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
Well, ILTV viewers, I have some very, very exciting news to share. As of 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time yesterday, I just officially became an uncle. So today's Hebrew word of the day is dod, which means uncle in Hebrew. I'm so excited and happy for my older brother, who is now an Abba, or father, my sister-in-law, who's now an Ima, or mother, and of course for my parents, who may still be in disbelief that they are now Sabim, or grandparents. Now I know I've been counting down the days until the birth of my nephew, and I have been anxiously awaiting to become a dod, or uncle. Obviously, my first act as dod will be to buy my nephew a toy. I'm thinking maybe a teddy bear the size of a small house, or perhaps a pony. He'll grow into it. But anyway, back to the real note. I love you guys so much. I'm so happy for you, and I can't wait to see you and visit my new nephew. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 71 or 22 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, you can expect a slight temperature drop with a high of 83 or 28 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.53 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.